Hello, good morning, everyone. Michael, are you there?
Hi,
I'm here, yes.
hi, good morning.
Hi, good morning. Thank you for joining us today for the fifth and final webinar in the five-part webinar series on digital transformation. I would first ask all of you to mute yourselves and disable your videos to optimize quality for everyone. And of course, before I begin, allow me for the last time, of course, very sadly as well, to introduce Michael to everyone. Michael is an instructor and freelance consultant for data science. Hold on, I'm going to mute Esther. He's an instructor and freelance consultant for data science, machine learning, and data strategy. Before that, he worked as a data scientist at Alexander Thumb, GmbH Consulting for multinational corporations across Europe. He's passionate about implementing data science and machine learning projects end to end, from the conception until deployment of operational data products that generate real value. Michael loves sharing his expertise and experience with data, which he has done in many trainings for various international companies and universities. And lastly, he holds a master's degree in international economics from the Graduate Institute of Geneva. So with that, today we will have a great session on, I would say, the most practical one among all. I would really encourage everyone to follow closely and of course keep your questions coming, and we will address them at the end of his presentation. So over to you, Michael.
Yes, thank you very much, Edison.
Thank you.
Can you hear me well?
Yes, very well.
Okay, perfect, great. Then, as usual, I think you've said it all and there's no need for me to introduce myself any further. I'd like to welcome everyone to the fifth and also the last part of this webinar series. We have come quite a long way already. So we have, in the first 3 webinars, looked at all of the different concepts that are out there, what they mean, and how they're interrelated. And we are going to, last week we looked at data strategies. So we checked out what a data strategy is and started seeing how you can create this data strategy for yourself. Now, recall that the most important thing about this is to be clear about your mission, try to break it down to goals, and then see how data can help you achieve these goals. I do hope that many of you have had the opportunity to start drafting and devising that data strategy. And I hope that the frameworks and the canvases I sent you were helpful in the sense that they helped you get clarity on your mission, and in the sense that they helped you get clarity on what your goals are and maybe where you want to focus your energy on. And of course, I do hope that as many of you as possible have started identifying, ideating data use cases. So ideally today, what you should have is have thought about these things, have thought about your mission, have thought about your goals, and have a list of at least a few dozens of use cases. Because what we're going to be looking at today is basically from your use case ideas that you might have is how can we mold this into data strategy. So today what we're going to be looking at concretely is we'll try to see how we can create a roadmap out of the ideas you have. So sort of take this raw diamond that you have and make a jewel out of it. We're going to have a look at a few example use cases to see how you can actually then implement such use case ideas. And then we're going to do basically a big wrap up of the last 5 weeks. So concretely, what I hope that everyone gets out of it today is that you'll be molding your ideas into a strategy. I will also present to you a few use cases that everyone can implement. This is regardless of whether you're agribusiness or tourism or IT or something else, textile or whatever. And I want everyone to learn how to approach the implementation of a use case. So as usual, you have your roadmap on the left, and we've already looked at these three things last time. So today we're going to start by looking at how to create a roadmap based off of the ideas that you hopefully have from last week. Good. So within the data strategy process, where are we at right now? Remember that we derived from this sort of framework or canvas, where the essential and the most important thing was that you have clarity on what your mission is, because everything else is sort of deriving from that, and everything else will depend on that. Every decision you take, every use case you can create, because these in turn depend on the goals you have, which in turn depend on your mission. Now, we've then had a look at a data strategy and what it is, which it's basically identifying as many use cases, data use cases as possible that help you achieve your goals. And so what we did is I gave you a few methods to help you get your creative juices out, a few brainstorming methods, a few methods to help you identify and ideate use cases. So that's what we looked at in the second step last time. And I also gave you this, this template, this canvas on how you can document the use cases. So ideally you should have had a few ideas, and this canvas here is supposed to help you drill them down, gain more clarity, and just, you know, basically define them. So hopefully what everyone has is a list that looks something like this, and this can be an Excel sheet or whatever it is. So a list with basically all of the ideas you have, so the names, maybe you've clustered them already into different clusters. So one cluster might be websites, another cluster might be marketing or operations, along with the size of the use case. So is it a very large one? Would it be a large one, a medium-sized or small one to implement? And along with somehow an estimation of you, an estimate of what the impact would be if you implemented this use case. Would this use case help you a lot, little, or not at all? Good. So what we're going to do now is, based off of this list, create a roadmap, an actionable roadmap. And we're going to do this by prioritizing use cases. Now, in the way we're going to do this, prioritizing our use cases, we're going to use certain criteria so that we can do this in a data-driven way, okay? So ideally, at the end of today, or once you do all of these exercises, you'll have a list of use cases with many criteria, and you can compare which one of those should you implement first, or which one has the highest priority with the help of these criteria. So concretely, once we've done that, once we've prioritized the use cases, then you can actually start executing them. You can say, okay, you know, my analysis has shown that the most important use case is XYZ. And to execute that use case, then you can start the additional questions like, okay, if it's a dashboard for my sales, then I need sales data. Where do I get the data from? What tools should you use? What expertise is required? Should I buy data in a tool, or should I make it myself? So these are all questions that I think are very frequent. So that you know, a lot of people ask these questions, and I always say the answer to this question depends ultimately on the use case you're implementing. And so this is why it's so important to be focused on one specific use case and to break down your data strategy into several milestones and several use cases which you can implement one by one. It's sort of a divide and conquer strategy, as always. Good. So what are the criteria by means of which we should or we can prioritize use cases? In the canvas that I sent you, I had blacked out this area, basically, this area on the top right corner. And the reason for that is because this is the part of the template where you're supposed to estimate A, your data sources that would be required to implement the use case, and B, what is the feasibility of it. And these are things or directions of thoughts that I didn't want you to go in at first, because they're the sort of thoughts, okay, we could do this, but, and yes, it would be great if we had the data, but we don't have. So when you did the brainstorming, and I hope many of you did, is I wanted to have everyone an open mind and just imagine that you have all of the data you need before thinking about the what and the buts and the ifs and but we cannot and we don't have. Simply that you get all of your ideas out there and are not hindering your creativity and your boldness, let's say. So in the next step, if you have your use cases filled out in the template and you haven't filled out this top right corner here, then do so next. The idea of this top right corner is that you try to estimate for a use case what data sources you would need and whether these data sources are internal to your organization or external or maybe both. Second, try to have an estimate of how available the data is that you would need to implement your use case. So let's say your use case is to create an interactive sales dashboard, then you'll probably need sales data, which you might have internally collected, but maybe also external. I don't know, maybe you're collecting the invoices from your customers or I don't know what. And then try to see how available is the data. Ideally, it's completely available, usually partly available, and in some cases, it might also not be available at all. Which means that you can't implement this use case right away because you need to collect data first, but it's no problem because you can always start collecting data, right? And lastly, also think about the data quality. So you might have data already, but maybe the quality is so bad that this would jeopardize the success or the implementation or the feasibility of your use case. And the second box down here, what we have is the feasibility. So the idea is to determine, this is the criteria of feasibility, and the idea is to determine how feasible is your use case from a technical point of view. So this is something that someone like me would have to tell you. So if you tell me, I want to predict how much I'm going to sell, then I can tell you the feasibility is in theory high, in practice medium. And if you tell me your use case is to create a dashboard of sales numbers, then I'll tell you the feasibility is very high. If you were to tell me that you want to create a super fancy machine learning algorithm, then I will tell you the technical feasibility is very low. There is, apart from the technical feasibility, typically also a business feasibility. This might have to do with legal things. Is it allowed to collect data about someone? Is it allowed to visualize certain, let's say, personalized data, and other business-related feasibility aspects? And then what you can do is aggregate this feasibility and overall score. From last time, you should have also already filled out what the size of the use case would be, whether it would be small or medium or large. So in terms of the project, if you were to implement the use case, would it take a long time? Is it a small, is it a big project, or is it pretty feasible and pretty fastly implementable? So is it rather small? And the next or the last criteria that I think is always very important and is maybe the most important one is the potential impact. So try to have an estimate. If you tell me you want a sales dashboard, then I tell you, okay, if I build this dashboard for you, would this have a high impact on your business? Would you therefore become more productive or more efficient, or would you save costs, or whatever KPI or benefit it is that you reap from it? Is this impact high, or is it rather low? So these are basically a set of criteria by means of which you can prioritize use cases. Now, this canvas, this is important to mention, this canvas is not, I haven't created this canvas for the canvas sake. So if you think that this is complete nonsense and that it doesn't help you at all, then, and you can create your data strategy in a different way, then feel free to do that. Also, if you feel that there are other criteria that you think are important to identify and prioritize use cases, then please go ahead and modify this canvas. At the end of the day, this is just a means to an end. And at the end of the day is that you become more productive by using data. And if the means is not perfect, then feel free to adjust it. So how would this look like for an example? So remember from last time that the use cases that I gave you as examples One of them were track SEO rankings for crucial keywords. And to recap, the problem is or might be that you don't know how good your website is in terms of its SEO, and we don't know how we rank for crucial keywords. For instance, a crucial keyword for me would be data consultant in Germany. Or an even more crucial keyword would be for me, hire data consultant in Germany. So I would want that I'm ranking on Google #1 for this. And the solution for this is basically create a list of relevant keywords and track their rankings over time. So ideally, you know, a small mockup would look like this, that I can simply have what is called a time series chart that displays how my ranking is for a certain keyword. Now, this use case, when I look at the data side of it, this would mean that it's external data. In this case, because I don't have internally in my possession the data of how I'm ranking. There are tools where you can buy this data, and this is why I put it as external. The tool here is called, the tool I'm using to do that is called SERProbot, SERProbot. So with SERProbot, you can actually export, or you can basically hire a robot, a bot, which is looking at your website and is going to type into Google essentially data consultant in Germany every 6 hours. And then it's going to see where on the rankings you are. And you can download this data from this tool. So that's why it's external data. The availability is, yes, completely given because these tools are very reliable and they'll produce the results for you. And the data quality is also high. There's almost no margin of error. So the quality in terms of is the quality complete, sorry, is the data complete and is it accurate, is high. Feasibility from a technical point of view, also very high because you have this tool. From a business point of view, also very high. There's no critical obstacles. And so overall, the feasibility is quite high. This, if I had a dashboard which shows me how my rankings track, sorry, how I'm ranking for different keywords over time, for me personally, because I depend on the internet and I depend on Google organic search for my potential clients and customers to find me, is pretty high. So I gave it a score of 4.5 here. Good. Second example. Follow-up use case for the previous one, which is implement SEO measures in a data-driven way. So let's say that our search engine optimization, our SEO, is not good, and I want to rank higher for crucial keywords for our business. So for instance, for the keyword data strategy workshop, I want to rank on place #1 instead of now place number 20. The solution for that is to implement a few SEO measures, and there are tons of SEO measures you can implement. Google takes into account around, I think, 190 indicators or variables to create its rankings. So there's literally 190 things that you can do to improve your SEO. And the idea is to try out a few of those measures and analyze whether they have an effect on the rankings for a given keyword. So for example, I might write a blog article about a certain topic, see if it improves my rankings. I might create what is called backlinks. So have other websites point to my website and see if this improves my rankings. I might put different headers on my website, see if this improves my rankings. I might include more images or videos and see if this improves my rankings. Again, the data that I would need to see if these SEO measures and their implementation has an effect is basically the same tool as I just talked about, SERProbot. So again, it's external data. Availability again is high. Quality is also high. The feasibility of this is still high, even though it's a bit tricky, because if you implement an SEO measure for Google, it takes a few weeks to update this, and you can never be entirely sure to attribute the changes or improvements in your ranking to the specific measure that you implemented, because it might also be that Google has an update and weighs its different variables differently. And so you simply rank higher for keyword because of a Google update rather than because of an SEO measure. But overall, feasibility from a technical, business, and overall point of view is still very high. Again, this has a quite high impact. So I gave it a 4 or 5 in terms of its impact. Now, these are 2 examples of how, once you've started filling in this canvas, how you should fill in this corner and basically, yeah, think about the impact. Ultimately, the goal is that you do this for all of the ideas that you have created and that you've come up with since last week. And the idea is, yes, SERP robot. I said SERP robot. I'll also write this in the chat real quick. SERP robot is a tool where you have to pay, I think, $5 USD per month, and then you can do the rankings as I just explained. Now, the idea is that your result from last week should have been already a list that looks something like this. So your use cases, their names, what cluster they belong to, what type of use cases they are, their size and their impact. And with the things we just talked about, basically you just need to append a few columns which contain other criteria that are helpful for you to prioritize. So the data quality, the data sources, the feasibility, what KPI you're looking at, etc. So basically, it's just a matter of extending your list that you already have with a few more columns. Then what you can do ultimately with this is, hang on. What you can do ultimately with this is basically execute your data strategy in a data-driven way. I'm sorry for being so meta, but the idea is that you'll probably have a list of use cases. And when I do this with companies, the top I've seen is that we had a workshop over 2 days and we came up with 120 use case ideas. You might not get up to 120, but I'm sure there's at least 20 that you should have in your list. And I'll come to a few of them, a few standard ones later. So out of these 20, you're going to have to decide and you're going to have to pick which one am I going to implement first. And once you have this list, basically what you can do is approach this whole thing in a data-driven way and base your decision on the data. And one thing you can do is visualize. And so what you can create, for example, is a feasibility, size, and impact matrix. So the idea is that you have your list of use cases and you put them in this chart. And this chart has on the x-axis the impact of your use case, on the y-axis the feasibility of the use case, and in terms of the size, how big you make a dot in this graph, the size of the use case, how big would it be to implement. And then you can color code it and say that I have a few clusters like marketing, sales, product, and website. And I'm just going to color code it to give me an idea of where my use cases are. Now, put your use cases in this matrix according to these criteria. So on the higher end of this graph, you'll have quick wins, so use cases that are rather feasible. So these should be on the top of the matrix. It should be all the use cases which have feasibility high. Whereas on the lower end, it should be use cases which have feasibility low. And impact-wise, you should have all of your use cases which would have a high impact on the right side and the ones with a low impact on your left side. What you can do next is basically identify different clusters. So you might have a few use cases which have a high feasibility. So I'm talking about these ones in the top left corner, but have little impact. And so these are what I call your warm-up use cases, meaning they wouldn't bring you much, but it's a good idea to implement them just to get some practice and get your hands dirty with the first tools or data or working with data in general. Then on this end, you might have use cases which have a high impact, but they're very difficult to implement. And so these are what I call your long-term projects, or maybe your visions or missions. This is what you can strive for in the long term. Typically, that's use cases for which you would require a lot of data or a lot of high quality data, which you might not have. Let's say if you want to create a fancy machine learning algorithm, for that you typically need good and a lot of high quality data. And the ones that you should start with, or that's my personal advice, is the ones that are in the top right corner. So that's use cases that are easy to implement, so they're highly feasible, and that are secondly also have a high impact. And so that's what I call the low-hanging big fruits. So ideally, if you visualize your use case ideas, hopefully you'll have as many of them as possible in the top right corner. So high impact, high feasibility. That's the cash cows. That's why I put the emojis. Good. What exactly your use cases are, I don't know. It will depend on your company. It will depend on the ideas you've come up with. Because yeah, a data strategy is a very individual thing. However, there are a few clusters and a few standard use cases that everyone should and can have. This is just a few of them. And these are based on my experience, on many data strategy workshops that I've given and that I've seen. I'm sure there might be more added to the list, and maybe some of them aren't 100% applicable to you. But I just wanted to go through each one of those to give you an idea of things that for sure everyone should have. Okay, so typically when I do these data strategy workshops and we identify use cases, we put them into clusters. And a few clusters that always come up are: 1, your website; 2, something that is operations internal to the company; 3, something related to product and services, depending on what you do; 4, data-driven marketing and sales; and 5, business development. Almost always guaranteed these clusters will emerge on top of other more company-specific clusters. Within these clusters, there are certain use cases which most likely will also always come up. Let's go through each one of them to give you an idea of what this would mean. So cluster number 1, website. One thing you can always do is data-driven SEO. This is basically what I showed you just in the examples. The idea is identify keywords that are relevant for your business, do a keyword analysis. So try to see, and there's also tools for that. Some of them also free. So I forget what it's called for Google, but they have an in-house tool where you can see the search volumes for certain keywords. So identify keywords, start tracking how you're ranking for them, implement some SEO measures, and see if your rankings improve. That's a standard use case, always applicable. Second one, we talked about this last time already, is personalization of websites. The idea of this use case is personalize your website to increase the conversion on your website. From someone visiting to someone signing up for a newsletter or making a buying a product or following you on Instagram. I don't know what your goal is, but the idea is personalize to increase conversion to whatever your goal is. 3, a descriptive analytics dashboard. This is super easy to implement. It's just basically Google Analytics. And this provides you with the means to implement a lot of use cases that are actually related to this. So where do my visitors come from? How do they behave on my website? What's the conversion of my website? What time of the day do they log on? How do they arrive? Where are they from? What's their social profile? Is it female? Is it male? Etc. So descriptive analytics dashboard, which is basically Google Analytics. Then related to personalization, actually preceding it is the use case of A/B testing. So checking out different setups of your website to see which one works good and setups that don't work so well. Something you can also do is including a chatbot on your website or some sort of quiz funneling, where the idea is to help website visitors find the right content on your website, or just customer care, or helping them find the right product. I don't know. You can set up a chatbot in many different ways, and you can set up a quiz funnel, a funnel quiz in many different ways. So there's also this use case you can shape in whatever form you like. And what we just talked about is keyword ranking, which is basically one of the preceding or required use cases to implement your data-driven SEO. Good. Cluster number 2 in operations. Typically, there's many use cases in there too, but one that is applicable to everyone is simply an activity dashboard where you visualize how much time you and your employees or your colleagues spend on certain tasks. Okay, so maybe you'll find out that you spend half of your time on marketing and sales, or on operations, and maybe this is really not in line with your goals because you want to be more focused on implementing projects. Or maybe you realize that only 1% of your time is going into marketing, which might not be in line with your goals because you're trying to expand business. The idea is have a visualization of your timesheets, of how you and your colleagues spend time within your company, and try to gain insights from that. Products and services, cluster that always comes up too. Here the use cases will depend on the company. I can't say more to that, and this is really company specific. Then data-driven marketing and sales, always a very, very big cluster as well, in which there are many use cases, but the ones I've picked and the ones I think I have it as an example later also is to calculate the rate of return of different marketing channels and to optimize ad personalizations. I'll skip these for now because I'll dive into them more later. And in business development, you have the use cases of doing a keyword-based market analysis. So the idea is that if you don't have data on how big a market is, let's say you want to start selling tea, or let's say you want to start selling a new safari tour, or let's say you want to start selling a new type of clothes, a new type of t-shirt, I don't know. And you don't have any data on how big the market would be. One thing you can always do is type in or look what's the search volume for this keyword in a given market. So let's say you want to start selling peppermint tea in Germany. One thing you can do is to get a feeling of the market size is to look how often do people on Google look for peppermint tea. This might not be perfect, but at least it gives you an idea of, is this something that's demanded? And maybe you find out that there's only one search query per month, which would mean that basically there's no market or there's no demand for it, let's say. Because you can always create a market, but there might not be demand from the start. Second one is data-driven business expansion. And the idea is if you expand your business to new markets, to new areas, try to get data on how big these markets are or these areas are, and which one is most crucial for you to expand into. So I think last time we talked about the heat map, right? The heat map of Germany, of the electricity provider who wanted to expand its market, but for that it first needed to know what's my market share in each of the regions of Germany. You can do the same. If you want to start selling new safari tours, you might want to expand from Europe to the United States or maybe to Asia, because this is rising economies there. What you can do is try to get data of organizations that show how big the market for tourism is in a certain country, or get some other kind of data. But basically base your business expansion and the market you expand to on data. And the third and last one is, one thing you can always also do is a website strength based competitor analysis. And there's tools out there. I'm going to write it in the chat again. This is a quite expensive tool. And it's just one example, but it's a tool called Ahrefs. And it allows you to basically type in any sort of website, and the tool will tell you how strong the website is. And By knowing how strong the website is, this is sort of a proxy to know how strong your competitor is in terms of how powerful is it, at least in the internet space, in terms of attracting organic visitors, in terms of ranking for keywords that might also be crucial for you. So for instance, I have a pretty weak website because I haven't spent much time on it, whereas you know, my competitors, McKinsey and I don't know, all kinds of data consulting companies have very strong websites, so they have a very strong website score, which tells me that the market of data, AI and machine learning is quite competitive. Good. So hang on. This was basically the topic of creating a roadmap, which is the idea of prioritizing your use cases to see, okay, out of the 20, 30, 40 ideas that you have, where am I going to start? Again, divide and conquer, and do that by prioritizing. Now, the next step is then to start executing your roadmap. And the idea in this is once you have your use case, then you can think about, okay, if I want to implement this use case, what kind of data do I need? What kind of tools do I need? Do I need external expertise, or can I implement this on my own? Should I buy a tool? Should I create a visualization on my own in Excel, or maybe they're ready-made solutions? So these are all questions that really should follow from a specific use case, and they often require a bit of research simply. So let's say you have example number one, the use case to calculate different rates of returns of different marketing channels. So the idea of this use case is that there are many marketing channels that you can use for your business, and you don't know which one to focus on. So you could do Google ads, you could do Google SEO organic search, you could do Facebook ads, you could do word to mouth, you could do influencer marketing, you could do trade fairs, you could do whatever it is, right? There's literally 1,000 ways that you can reach your customer. The question is, which of these channels is most effective for you? And the use case that would help you in answering this question is calculate different rates of returns for different marketing channels. Let me jump to the next slide. The idea behind this use case is basically that you have your sales and marketing funnel. The sales and marketing funnel as a framework is one of the most basic frameworks in marketing. And the idea is that it depicts your customer's journey up until they make finally the buy from you. So if you're selling tea, or if you're selling t-shirts, or if you're selling IT services, at the end of the day, what you want is that your customers buy something for you, right? So this will be the end of your customer's funnel, or your sales and marketing funnel. Now, before someone gets to that stage, they will have to, in some way or another, engage with you, which presupposes that there is some sort of interest from them. And for them, for your customers to have interest, first, there must be an awareness that you exist in the first place. Because how am I going to sell, or how can someone show interest in my services if they don't even know that I exist? Along this, you can use different, what are called marketing and sales channels, right? So you can set up your funnel in different ways. For instance, you might give your customer the possibility to engage with you via email, or maybe via newsletter sign up, or simply via your website, or maybe WhatsApp, or maybe a chatbot. I don't know what it is. Same for interest. Where can people get a first information about you? Is it your website? Is it maybe your Facebook site? Can they call you? Is it your Instagram site? Again, you might have many, many different channels. To get there, there's first the whole step of them being aware of it. And so there are many, 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 many channels that customers can start becoming aware of you. One of them is Google organic search. So they might simply come across you when they type something into Google, which hopefully you're ranking high for this keyword. But you might also do Google ads. You might have Facebook ads. You might contact influencers on Instagram to make a post about you. You might visit trade fairs. You might contact people directly. You might have word of mouth. You might have recommendations from other companies. You might have partnerships with, I don't know, some other companies. Now, the idea of the use case of comparing the rate of return is that you try out as many of these channels. So let's say you invest a few dollars into Facebook ads, you invest a few dollars into Google ads, you invest a few dollars into Instagram ads, and see, okay, out of the people that saw my Facebook ad, how many, and this depends on what your goal is, how many in the end bought tea on my website, right? So this will require you to track the customer journey on your website, for instance. You're going to do the same thing for Instagram, and you're going to do the same thing for Google Ads to see, okay, if I spend $10 on Facebook ads, then maybe this will give you 100 website visits. And out of 100 people that visit my website, I know that 10 will buy tea or will buy a certain product. So then what you can do if you start collecting this data, and if you have numbers on your different marketing channels, is you can compare these marketing channels and see which one is most effective. So basically what you do is you calculate the KPI, which in this case could for instance be, how much money do I have to spend for new website visitors? Or a different KPI might be, how much money, how much US dollars do I need to spend to get one more follower? Or how much money do I need to spend to sell one more tea product? And then you calculate this KPI for all of your different channels. And maybe you'll find out that for Google, on average, you have to pay $1 for each additional website visitor, which is super expensive. If you contact influencers and you pay them $100 to make a post, then maybe your KPI there will be $1.25. For trade fairs, it might be even higher, or if you contact people directly, it might be even higher if you convert the time that you need to spend on these things into your own money. And maybe you find out that Facebook ads are for you the cheapest way because maybe that's where your target group is. And for each additional website visit, or for if you use Facebook ads, maybe you find out that you only need to pay 50 cents to have someone buy a product from your website. The idea of this use case is try out different channels, collect the data, and then calculate the KPIs of how much you have to pay for each channel for a certain goal that you're trying to reach. Okay, so you don't need any tools for this except Facebook ads, Google ads. Basically an Excel is enough, because at the end of the day, what you need is just a data set which contains these numbers, and then you can visualize it by yourself. Second example, let's say you've prioritized and you've come up with the use case of optimizing Facebook ads to increase conversion with A/B testing. So let's say you've implemented the previous use case and you find out that Facebook ads is really the thing for you and your company. One thing you can do is you can try and optimize your Facebook ads so that you have to spend, instead of 50 cents, even less money for a website visit. And the idea is, let's say you have identified Facebook ads as the most effective way for you to reach out to new customers. Within Facebook ads, there are many, many different ways that you can set up your Facebook campaign. Okay, the question is, which one is the most effective? And so what you can do is you can A and B test different contents of your ads. So you can include a picture, or you can change the image. You can change your text, you can change your headings, you can change everything content-wise. And you can also try and play around with your target persona profile, because with Facebook ads, you can determine who is shown a certain ad, and you can do the same thing for Google ads. Only females or males, or what's their age bracket, what companies do they like. So you can play around with different target persona profiles. Again, if you want to implement this use case, What you're going to do is simply define a few variants of your ad content-wise, and also define a few target personas on Facebook that you would like to reach. And then what you're going to do is you're simply going to try out again. And let's say you spend for each of these variant profile combinations 100 Facebook. Sorry, you spend so much money that 100 people on Facebook will see this ad. Then what you're going to do is, and last time we had the questions of if heat maps are still relevant. Yes, they are. What you can do is simply visualize the data you collect through that. So basically, again, you calculate a KPI, which in this case would be out of 100 users on Facebook who saw a certain ad, this is how many clicked on it. So you might have your one profile, which are maybe male young people, and they were shown ad variant 1. And out of 100 people of this profile who saw this ad, 50 clicked on the link and went to your website. Now, same profile, but maybe you showed them a second variant of ads, and out of 100 people of profile 1 who saw variant 2, 35 went to your website. And you're going to do the same thing for all of the profiles and all of the ad variants. And then you'll maybe find out things like, hey, to my target persona of profile 3, which is old, middle-aged people, male, I don't know. Somehow ad variant number 1 speaks to them most, which ad variant 1 might be a one that is very logic. And you might find out that profile number 2, ad variant number 3 speaks to them most, because this is maybe more emotional, I don't know. And what you can also find out if you have this data then is, hey, maybe my dream customer or the target persona that I've created was profile number 4, but actually it really is not interested in my products at all because it consistently has a quite low conversion. So yeah, if out of this graph, you can actually read a lot of things, but the point of this one is mostly, I have different target persona profiles. Which message do I use or which ad do I use for which one to increase my conversions to get this number here as high as possible? Because the higher this number, the lower the costs are for you to get new customers by spending money on ads, right? So instead of the 50 cents that you might have to spend for someone on Facebook for them to visit the website, maybe you can, by optimizing your ad, you can push it down to 25. Okay, good. I'll go through this very briefly. A third example, if you want to implement it, let's say you have the use case of before, cluster internal operations, and within the cluster, the use case internal timesheet dashboard. So let's say the problem is that you don't know what and your team spend most time on, and you don't know if there's room for optimization. A solution in this case might simply be to collect data on how much time a person is working on a given task or project and visualize this. And so this might look as simple as this, right? This is something that literally everyone can do. Simply track what you're spending your day with at work. Is it for marketing? Is it for sales? Is it for a project? Is it for talking to clients? You know, define your categories, collect data on it, and then you can visualize it. And maybe you'll see, hey, damn it, out of the 8 hours I spend in the office, 7 hours are spent on dealing with customers. I need to find a solution and maybe outsource this or maybe include a chatbot so I don't have to deal with all of these clients. So in this case, very simple to implement. Just track your times and then you can visualize it. There's dedicated tools for that, or you can do it in Excel, you know, whatever works for you. Any app site to measure team activities? Yes, there are many. I don't know if they're free ones, but the ones I always use is something called Jira. But I'm sure, I think you have to pay for it, at least if you have a certain number of users. Good. All right, then what I would like to, we're still in the topic of how do you execute a roadmap. So I've just shown 2 or 3 examples of use cases. Once you have them, how would you actually go about this? And now I want to still give you 5 practical advices to help you executing your roadmap. The first practical advice is get up 1 hour earlier. And this might sound very simple, it might sound a bit silly, but the idea is that the entire topic of data, of implementing a data strategy, are typically things that pay off more in the middle or long term. You, unless you're different from most people like me, will not dedicate your time to things that don't have an immediate payoff. It's Corona now, maybe some of your family or partners and your business. I'm sure that I would think that most of you are stuck in basically putting out fires and somehow keeping your business running. So if you arrive at 9 in the office, you'll be busy with reacting to problems that come up. You are not going to implement your data strategy and these things if you are not proactive. And you can be proactive. One simple tip is simply get up 1 hour earlier and be in the office 1 hour before all of your daily operations and day-to-day business really commence, so that you have 1 hour a day which is quiet and where you can dedicate yourself to these projects. Okay, so this is basically the idea, is make the shift from being reactive in your work to being proactive in it. Second advice, strategize well. So you have all the tools at your hand now, but at the end of the day, also don't forget to just do it, okay? Because you can also strategize yourself to death. And it's good to have clarity, and I'm a fan, and my German side is also strategizing, typically more than is necessary, and thinking about problems and how to approach them. But at the end of the day, you also have to be American and just, you know, or I don't know, cultures who simply do things without overthinking them, and just do it, you know. If you don't start somewhere, you'll never get anywhere. So be diligent, but don't overdo all of the strategizing. Third advice, regard data as an asset. You've seen this slide before, and I just want to repeat it here. Regard data as an asset, which implies it's an investment, okay? And recording the time you work per day is annoying, and it's going to take you 2 or 3 minutes a day to write down what you're working on. Spending money on Facebook ads to optimize it, it will cost you money. Other use cases will cost you money. Collecting data will cost you time or money. There's an invest. Typically, there's an invest because most people don't have data or tools readily available. So you have to regard it as an investment, which also pays off. So don't be stuck in this scarcity mindset and only see the costs that you're putting into this. Also see the benefits, right? It's a sow and reap. And it's an asset that you'll continue to have. Obviously, if you make an investment and if you invest into this asset, how much you invest in it should be based on as much information as possible. And this is why when you brainstorm use cases, try to gauge or try to estimate how big would the impact would be. If the impact would be low, then no need to invest money in it. If you think that Facebook ads is anyways completely not relevant for you, then you don't need to spend money on trying to find out how to optimize your Facebook ads. However, if you do think that there is much to be reaped from it, then take the leap and make the investment. Number 4, also recap. Recall all the ways you can obtain data. So internally, there's all sorts of data sources you have or you might have, and you can always start collecting data like we've just talked about in the 3 examples. Same thing goes for external. There are many many websites, many data sets available out there that you can start harnessing. And there are also many tools which provide you with data or which allow you to collect data like SERP Robot, like we talked about. And practical advice number 5, often there are convenient off-the-shelf solutions. Okay, so I think the things I have no experience in, I have never done Facebook ads. So I don't know what the interface looks like, but I'm sure things we talked about today, like optimizing your Facebook ads, there's also functionality like this in the Facebook business platform, which is where you can have ads. There's Ahrefs, which we talked about. Google Analytics will allow you to implement many use cases already. SERP Robot. Don't forget all of the cloud services. Yeah, I can't list all of them. The idea is if you have a use case in mind that you want to implement, check out first if they're off-the-shelf solutions for you to implement it. Okay, good. Then let me do the wrap up and also leave you with a few final remarks. So we have by now come a very, very long way. We've had 5 hours of input pure. Unfortunately, because of the webinar format, this is a one-way street. But yeah, you've received a lot of content. Overall, in the last 5 weeks, we went from what and why to how, okay? And what we looked at on the first webinar is the topic of digital transformation. Why do we care about all of this? Why do we care about all of the things we talked about in the last 5 weeks? The reason is that digital transformation is changing every business in every sector of every size. And increasingly, this will be driven by data, right? And if you don't engage in innovating in digital transformation, then you probably lose out on competitive edge. So the key to have competitive edge and to innovate and transform yourself is increasingly data. The main takeaway of the first part that I want everyone to take with you is to become data driven, okay? And the idea of becoming data driven is simply get some data or look at some data, draw insights from it and act on it. Or to put differently, base your decisions and your actions on data rather than on feelings, on emotions, on I believe. Okay, that's the single most important lesson of all of this. Second webinar, we looked at we looked at data. What is it? What types of data are there? What can you do with it? That's the entire topic of data analytics. Remember the 4 types of data analytics use cases: descriptive, diagnostic, predictive, prescriptive. We've briefly looked at the cloud, and which basically simply means using someone else's computer, which can help you implement such use cases. Third week, we looked at more advanced data analytics topics, which are machine learning, artificial intelligence, and advanced analytics. So main takeaway from this week was there's something called artificial intelligence, which are simply computer systems or algorithms, which are in some shape or form intelligent. And the question, when will AI arrive? The answer is that it's already here, but you must distinguish between narrow or weak AI, which are systems that are only able to perform one specific task, and broad or general AI, which is what everyone thinks of AI, which is something like the Terminator. The main thing about AI, the main approach to create AI is machine learning. So we looked into machine learning, what types of machine learning there are, how it works roughly. And the idea of machine learning is simply that you can teach a machine to learn a certain task by simply providing it with data. Last week, we looked at what a data strategy is. So all of the things that you've learned in the first 3 parts, and how can you leverage those things in your company? This is the topic of data strategy. We looked into how you can develop your data strategy. And we looked at how you can ideate some data use cases. And today, what we did is, once you have your ideas, how do you form a roadmap out of them? Prioritizing use cases, right, with the matrix. And how do you execute this roadmap? So again, here the strategy is divide and conquer. So prioritize your use case, go use case by use case. And then answer the questions, where do I get the data from? What data do I need? And basically, what I want you to leave you with today is the final remarks. first final remark is congratulations, everyone, on basically being a data native. Because while we have not and we cannot and covered all of the topics in depth that are out there for data, for machine learning, for AI and all of this galaxy, we haven't covered all of this into depth, but I do hope, and this was my personal goal, is that I've at least showed you what's out there, what other companies are doing. So my goal was to give you an overview of the things that are out there. So you can now, if you're interested in more topics, delve into them by yourself. And yeah, we have had a look at a few topics in more detail. So we might have had a look at it only a few topics, but I hope that you're aware of all of the things out there and also aware of how they can benefit you. Okay, so I hope that I've achieved the main goal of you gaining an overview, gaining clarity, stop being confused, stop maybe also being intimidated by all of this, right? Because AI always sounds so fancy, but if you break it down, there are many things you can do with data that everyone can do, even if you don't have a computer. So I hope that I was also able to take the fear away a bit. And again, the single most important bottom line of all of this for me is that you guys become data driven, meaning think data and base your decisions on data and try to make that switch in how you operate your business. So who can do it? You can do it. I'm half German, half Indonesian, and I'm mostly consulting for clients here in Europe, but I have also worked in Indonesia and I know how things look on the ground and how things look on the ground in a quote unquote emerging economy like Indonesia. And maybe things look similar in the countries where you're at. And in Indonesia, for instance, often people don't have data. People are happy if the computers work. And you might think that in Europe, everyone is so advanced and things are working out perfectly and everyone can implement AI use cases here. The truth is, on the one hand, no, in Germany, people aren't as far as you might think. So they're struggling with the exact same problems that you're struggling with, which might be a confusion about all of these concepts, which might be a lack of data, which might be being unclear about what data strategy they have. They don't have a data strategy. And so basically we're all in the same boat, whether you're in Europe or in Africa or in Asia. And on the second hand, it also means, and I hope that you got this out of these webinars, is that even if you're not a super data-driven tech company yet, there are things you can do with data, and there are ways in which data can help you become more efficient and in which data can help you grow your business stronger. So this is basically just a bit of a pep talk that don't be discouraged. You can do it. Okay, everyone can implement it. And yeah, the very last word from my side is at this point a very warm thank you for listening. I know that you've probably had a lot of webinars these days, and there might be something like a bit of a webinar fatigue. So I really appreciate you guys showing up every week, showing up early even, and listening to me for an hour. That's really warmly appreciated. So thanks everyone, and may the data be with you. Last word, if you have questions, feel free to ask them now. If we don't have time or space now, then you have my email address. Oh no, you don't, but you have my website and you can find my email address there. And you have my LinkedIn account. So do connect with me on LinkedIn. I'm happy to answer questions and maybe help you out with any sort of data related things or pointers if you need. So yeah, I'm looking forward to you guys connecting. And with that, I'm handing over to you, Edison.
Hi, Michael. You should be expecting an avalanche of requests for help on your email, so get ready for that. Now that we moved on to question and answer, allow me to publish the poll so everyone could complete it.
Oh, yes.
Yes. I will be sending a separate questionnaire for all the 5 webinars that we have delivered, so that you can actually provide your feedback to SheTrades, and also there are a couple of questions there which would really help Michael review and evaluate his own performance. Not me; I will not be evaluating. And yeah, so we look forward to hopefully engaging Michael for future webinars and mentoring. So here's the poll, and I will launch into Doris's question. Okay, so if you have an e-commerce website where your current products are on display, how would you determine which of the products to post, when, and the frequencies of your posts on your social media platforms to drive visitors to your website? From your,
Okay.
it's a long one. I think you might have to read it yourself.
Hang on, I need to check it out. This was
At 12:30, so
okay. Okay, please. Okay. Oh, okay, good. I think, Doris, that's a very good question. And again, basically what you do is you try to follow a very similar approach to the Facebook example I gave. So the first thing you have to do is define certain KPIs. And I think in your case, the KPI might be, if I make a post on Instagram, how many people go from this post to my website? Okay. Or a different KPI might be, if I make a post of a product on Instagram, how many people comment or how many people like. So these are other KPIs, which are called engagement, basically. And what you can do is, again, you try out different ways to post your product ad. So maybe once you take a picture of the product, and a second variant might be you post a picture of the product and someone using it, or a beautiful model, a handsome guy displaying this product. And then you can see, okay, which one gains more recognition, which one has more views, which one has more likes, which one converts more to my website. And then you can also play with the dimension of time and see, okay, if I post it at 12 or at 1, is there a difference? Which, spoiler alert, yes, there is. If you will just Google best time to post on Instagram, you'll see a heat map of when there are most users active on Instagram. And I don't know it from the top of my head, but there are certain days and certain times during the day when you should post, because that's when engagement is highest. Yep, I hope that answers.
hi, I would also add, in my previous job, if you go on Facebook and, sometimes when you post something from your company, you can see some basic analytics, which I think in different countries, different contexts, behavior, is different. Sometimes you check, at least in Singapore where I'm from, people tend to read emails and Facebook posts at 7 a.m. when they're on their way to work.
Yeah, for
So
example.
usually, the transportation takes maximum half an hour. So there's this half an hour window that me and my team, we try to post at. And same time when they go home at 7 p.m. And that's the usual time Singaporeans go home. So I would say that look at Instagram, look at Facebook, at the analytics, and that will really help you decide when to post what, and to also determine where the viewers are from. So they could be maybe for my post, mostly they're from the US and the Middle East and Asia. So for you, it could be from the regional markets or globally. So these are very simple things that you can look at. And I will also be sharing with everyone the past webinars we have delivered on Instagram, Google Analytics, Google AdWords, and of course this 5-part webinar series. So sorry, let me look at the next questions if we have any.
I'm also scrolling through as
Please, there are 34% of you who have not answered the poll. I will know who you are, so please just answer the poll. Thank you very much. We do not have questions. Are you sure, everyone?
I
Because
think
this is the
so.
last time you will see my, well, not the last time, but for now, you might want to post something. If you have started to, look at the canvas, you've started to look at, I think I've sent it out. You've developed something in a preliminary stage. You have questions, please ask it now. I can't relaunch the poll, sorry, Doris. You might have to, it's okay if you can't fill it up. we will have a questionnaire that we'll send out at a later point. Yeah, any questions, please think hard,
And
but
if you
not.
don't have questions, that's also fine, right? I'm sure
Yeah.
questions will come up along the way. You have my contact details, so
Yes.
do feel free to reach out.
At times the problem exists, but getting the data is a problem. It's true. Well, it's the goal of this five-part webinar series is to get everyone, because not everyone is data-driven now, and not everyone has the, you have IT, some of you don't have the IT staff to dedicate to collecting data and organizing them. And the goal of this webinar series is to really get everyone to think that, AI and machine learning is not something that is very far-fetched. It's something that you can start working on it now by preparing the foundation, and which is to collect data. I think Michael has shown you the progress you've made from, understanding basic concepts to really having a data strategy. So I don't see any questions coming through. Was watching from the hospital. Well, get well soon, Abimbola. Yes, please rewatch the five webinars, and if you have questions, Michael has given a green light to contact him. So the floodgates are open. Please go to him. Yes, you will see his contact information on this webinar, recorded webinar. If not, you can find it on the website.
Yes.
So yes, Grace, please go ahead. Any way to find out about people who are more off the grid?
I don't know what's meant with
Yeah,
this
I
question.
don't really. Robin, would you like to? I Let me unmute you so you can verbalize your question. Robin, you're unmuted now.
Yeah, so lots of the like I was looking at like Instagram followers, and someone said, "Oh, you don't actually have the clear picture of our customer," and it like she didn't have engagement. So I think her people are buying from her who aren't like engaged in Instagram, or
Right.
they're
Okay.
they're not going to comment on Instagram, but they're buying. So like, how can you find more out about those people?
Okay, that's a good question. So if I understand you correctly, then maybe Instagram is not one of the primary channels of this person, of your client or of you. I don't know whom you're talking about. And basically, I think the approach would be go back to your sales and marketing funnel and think about your target persona and think about all of the marketing channels there are, and put yourself in the shoes of your target persona and think, where on these channels would you be? And if you're lucky, it's a channel where you can track the activity of your user. So if it's Google Ads, you can track them. If it's word to mouth, there's no way for you to track it. If you're unlucky, then it's a channel that is more opaque. Yeah, this will depend on your business model and really on your target persona of your profile, of your target persona profile. That said, the good thing is if you manage to push, or if you manage to get customers from digital channels, then you have all of these features of tracking them. Then you have the feature of, you can Google Facebook pixels, Instagram pixels, and Google pixels, which are basically means to track their behavior, the behavior of people who visited your website. For off the grid, yeah, difficult. Sorry, that's all I can say to that.
Thanks.
No worries.
Thank you, Robin, for your question. Any more questions? I would also say that once we send out this questionnaire for this five-part webinar series, please try to fill out the questions. For example, if we ask for recommendations on, this webinar series, if you think that's something that you really need, for example, search engine optimization, or you want to know something specific for AI and machine learning or data strategy, please be, write as much as possible, be concise, of course, so that this will really inform me and help me decide, how else we would like to engage Michael, because I definitely think there's so much more he can offer, and this is just the tip of the iceberg. So if we have no more questions, I would close the session and release us for lunch.
Yes.
So, uh, any more questions in the next 10 seconds?
I don't have a question, but I have a last comment I want to make, which
Yes,
is thank you,
please.
Edison. Thank you, Edison, for all of the organization, for the moderation and everything. I really appreciate, and I hope that yeah, everyone.
Thank
I'm
you,
sure
Michael.
everyone appreciates your effort in this too.
Thank you. I hope so too. Yes, I'm very happy. I think we reach our objectives, and we have a consistent high number of participants from all sectors. And my only wish is that everyone starts taking this. Well, don't take this too seriously, but also take it seriously enough to implement something. Yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, I look forward to more webinars and hopefully mentoring sessions for the SheTrades members. And yeah, thank you everyone for your time and for
Perfect.
following us for the 5 sessions.
Yes.
So
Thanks, everyone.
with
Good luck with
that,
everything.
yes, please go ahead and contact Michael, and I will be sharing the webinar series recorded sessions with everyone. So thank you for your time,
Excellent.
and I wish you a fantastic week.
I wish you that too. Bye.
Thank you, Michael. Thank you, everyone.